Jacob Morgan was a man in his mid-40s who owned a successful chain of coffee shops. Despite his professional achievements, he felt a profound loneliness. His large house in the suburbs of Seattle, surrounded by the hustle and bustle of the city, only amplified his sense of isolation. The only meaningful connection he had was with his mother, Evelyn Morgan, who was in her early 70s and suffered from severe arthritis. Her condition required constant care, which Jacob took upon himself, further deepening his sense of responsibility and solitude. One evening, seeking a brief respite from his demanding life, Jacob decided to take a walk in the nearby park. The fresh air and the sounds of nature provided a temporary escape from his worries. As he wandered along the tree-lined paths, he noticed a small figure huddled under a tree. Drawing closer, he realized it was a young boy, no older than 8, sobbing quietly. "Hey there," Jacob called softly, not wanting to startle the child. "Are you okay?" The boy looked up, his tear-streaked face filled with fear and uncertainty. "I'm lost," he replied in a shaky voice. "I don't know how to get home." Jacob's heart went out to the boy. "What's your name?" he asked gently. "Tommy," the boy replied, wiping his nose with the back of his hand. "Well, Tommy, my name is Jacob," Jacob said, offering a reassuring smile. "How about you come with me? We can figure out where you live and get you home." Tommy hesitated, but eventually nodded. He was scared and tired, and Jacob's calm demeanor offered a glimmer of hope. As they walked back to Jacob's house, Tommy revealed bits and pieces of his life. He lived in a makeshift cardboard house and had no real home. Jacob was both saddened and angered by this revelation. How could a child be left to fend for himself in such conditions? When they arrived at Jacob's house, Tommy's eyes widened in awe. "Wow, this place is huge," he exclaimed, momentarily forgetting his predicament. Jacob smiled. "It is, isn't it? Let's get you something to eat and a warm bed for the night." As they entered the house, they were met by Linda, the housemaid in her 50s. Linda was practical and somewhat skeptical. Her eyes widened in surprise when she saw Tommy. "Mr. Morgan, who is this?" she asked, her tone cautious. "This is Tommy," Jacob replied. "I found him lost in the park. He's staying with us tonight." Linda's expression turned to one of concern. "But, Mr. Morgan, we don't know anything about him. It could be risky." Jacob sighed. "I understand your concerns, Linda, but we can't just leave him out there. He has nowhere to go." Reluctantly, Linda agreed. "Very well, but we need to be cautious." That night, Jacob provided Tommy with a warm meal and a comfortable bed. The boy's excitement and wonder at the house brought a rare joy to Jacob, a feeling he hadn't experienced in a long time. As Tommy drifted off to sleep, Jacob couldn't help but feel a growing sense of responsibility and affection for the boy. The next morning, Jacob had to leave early for work. He instructed Linda to keep an eye on Tommy and ensure he was safe. Despite her initial skepticism, Linda found herself warming up to the boy's cheerful and curious nature. With Jacob gone, Tommy spent the day exploring the house and its surroundings. He eventually found his way to the garden, where Evelyn often sat in her wheelchair, tending to her plants. Her severe arthritis made many activities difficult, but gardening remained a passion she could still enjoy, albeit with help. "Hello," Tommy said shyly, approaching Evelyn. "I'm Tommy." Evelyn looked up, her eyes brightening at the sight of the young boy. "Hello, Tommy. I'm Evelyn. Do you like plants? Tommy nodded enthusiastically. I do. Can I help you? Tommy asked eagerly. Evelyn smiled. Of course, dear. Hand me those pruning shears, will you? Throughout the day, Tommy assisted Evelyn with her gardening. He was driven by a desire to help and a natural curiosity about the plants. Despite her condition, Evelyn enjoyed the boy's company and appreciated his willingness to assist. As evening approached, Tommy showed Evelyn the flowers he had helped plant. For a brief moment, Evelyn's face lit up with a clarity and recognition that had been absent for years. She looked at Tommy with a smile, her eyes clear and focused. Thank you, Tommy, she said softly. These are beautiful. Tommy beamed with pride. You're welcome, Evelyn. That night, as Jacob returned home, he was met with a sight that filled him with joy and relief. Evelyn, who had been trapped in a fog of pain and confusion for so long, was smiling and interacting with Tommy. It was a moment of lucidity that Jacob had longed for. He knew then that he had made the right decision by bringing Tommy into their lives. As they sat down to dinner, a newfound sense of hope and connection filled the house. The journey was just beginning, but for the first time in a long while, Jacob felt they were on the path to becoming a family. The next morning, Jacob woke up with a sense of purpose that had been missing from his life for years. The memory of Evelyn's brief moment of clarity, brought on by Tommy's presence, filled him with hope. He left for work with a lighter heart, knowing that Tommy was in good hands with Linda and Evelyn. Tommy, too, woke up feeling excited. He had never experienced such kindness and warmth before. He quickly dressed and went downstairs, where Linda was preparing breakfast. Despite her initial reservations, she found herself smiling at the boy's enthusiasm. Good morning, Tommy, she greeted. Did you sleep well? Yes, ma'am, Tommy replied, his eyes shining. Thank you for everything. Linda's heart softened further. You're welcome, dear. Now, eat up. We have a lot to do today. After breakfast, Tommy headed out to the garden, eager to spend more time with Evelyn. He found her already seated in her wheelchair, gently tending to the plants. Her face lit up when she saw him. Good morning, Tommy, she said warmly. Ready to help me again? Yes, Evelyn, Tommy replied eagerly. What do we do today? Evelyn handed him a watering can. We need to water the flowers and trim the bushes. Can you do that? Tommy nodded, taking the can and carefully watering each plant. As they worked side by side, Evelyn shared stories from her past. Her voice was soft, but filled with emotion as she spoke of her late husband, Jacob's father, and how they had built the coffee shop business from the ground up. Tommy listened intently, feeling a growing connection to Evelyn and her family. Meanwhile, Jacob's day at work was filled with thoughts of Tommy and Evelyn. He couldn't wait to get home and see how they were doing. He left the office early, driven by a desire to spend more time with them. When Jacob arrived home, he found Tommy and Evelyn still in the garden, surrounded by blooming flowers. The sight warmed his heart, and he approached them with a smile. Hello, you two, he greeted. How was your day? It was wonderful, Jacob, Evelyn replied, her eyes sparkling. Tommy has been such a big help. Tommy beamed with pride. Evelyn taught me so much about gardening. I love it. Jacob's smile widened. That's great to hear, Tommy. I'm glad you're enjoying yourself. As the evening approached, Jacob suggested they take a walk in the park. It was the perfect opportunity to enjoy the fresh air and continue building their bond. Evelyn agreed, and with Tommy by their side, they set off on a leisurely stroll. The park was a beautiful place, filled with towering trees and well-kept paths. As they walked, Jacob and Tommy chatted about everything from school to their favorite hobbies. Jacob found himself growing more and more attached to the boy who had brought so much light into their lives in such a short time. "Tommy," Jacob said as they paused by a small pond, "I want you to know that you're always welcome here. You've made a big difference in our lives," Jacob said, his voice warm. Tommy looked up at Jacob, his eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you, Jacob. I'm really happy here." Jacob's heart swelled with emotion. He knew what he had to do next. "Tommy, how would you feel if you stayed with us permanently? Would you like to be part of our family?" Tommy's eyes widened in surprise and joy. "Really? You want me to stay?" "Yes, Tommy," Jacob replied, his voice firm. "We want to adopt you. You've become very special to us, and we want to give you the home and family you deserve." Tears of happiness filled Tommy's eyes. "I would love that, Jacob. I've always wanted a family." Jacob hugged Tommy tightly, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. Evelyn watched with tears in her eyes, moved by the bond forming between her son and the boy who had brought so much joy into their lives. As they walked back home, the sense of hope and connection grew stronger. They were no longer just individuals living separate lives. They were becoming a family. For the first time in a long time, the future looked bright and filled with promise. The decision to adopt Tommy brought a new sense of purpose to Jacob's life. He threw himself into the process with determination, eager to make Tommy an official part of their family. The adoption procedures were complex and time-consuming, but Jacob navigated them with a steadfast resolve. Meanwhile, Tommy continued to bring joy and energy into their home. His presence had a positive impact on everyone, especially Evelyn. Her severe arthritis still posed a challenge, but the moments she spent with Tommy in the garden seemed to alleviate her pain, even if temporarily. One afternoon, while Jacob was at work, Tommy and Evelyn were in the garden, planting new flowers. Linda watched them from the kitchen window, her skepticism slowly melting away. She had grown fond of Tommy and admired how he brought out the best in Evelyn. "Tommy," Evelyn said softly, "I want to thank you for everything. You've made these days so much brighter." Tommy looked up from the flower bed, his hands covered in soil. "I'm happy to help, Evelyn. I love spending time with you." Evelyn reached out and patted his shoulder. "You have a kind heart, Tommy. Never lose that." As the days passed, the paperwork for Tommy's adoption neared completion. Jacob worked tirelessly to ensure everything was in order, eager to finalize the process. He often discussed his plans with Linda, who had become a trusted confidant. "Linda," Jacob said one evening, "I can't thank you enough for helping with Tommy and Mom. You've been incredible." Linda smiled warmly. "It's my pleasure, Mr. Morgan. Tommy is a wonderful boy, and your mother has shown such improvement with him around. It's been a joy to see." Jacob nodded, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. "We're so close to making this official. I can't wait to tell Tommy." That night, after dinner, Jacob sat Tommy down for a conversation. Evelyn and Linda joined them, sensing the importance of the moment. "Tommy," Jacob began, "I have some good news. The adoption process is almost complete. Soon you'll officially be a part of our family." Tommy's eyes lit up with joy. Really? That's amazing. Jacob smiled. Yes, really. You've brought so much happiness into our lives, and we want you to stay with us forever. Evelyn reached out and took Tommy's hand. You belong with us, Tommy. We're so lucky to have you. Linda, who had grown to care deeply for the boy, added, You've made this house a home, Tommy. We're all very proud of you. Tommy beamed, feeling a sense of belonging he had never known before. Thank you, everyone. I promise I'll be the best son and grandson ever. As the evening drew to a close, the family shared stories and laughter, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. Jacob felt a profound sense of fulfillment, knowing they were on the brink of becoming an official family. The next morning, Jacob received a call from the adoption agency confirming the finalization of the paperwork. Overjoyed, he couldn't wait to share the news with Tommy and Evelyn. He rushed home, his heart racing with excitement. Tommy, Evelyn, Linda, Jacob called as he entered the house. It's official. The adoption is finalized. Tommy is now legally our family, Jacob announced, his voice filled with joy. Cheers and tears of happiness filled the room as everyone embraced the news. For Tommy, this marked the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with love, security, and the promise of a brighter future. The transformation in their lives was profound. Jacob had found a new sense of purpose. Evelyn experienced moments of clarity and happiness, and Linda felt a renewed sense of belonging in their warm and loving home. Together, they proved that the power of compassion and the formation of a new family could bring light and joy into even the darkest times. With Tommy's adoption finalized, the Morgan household became a place of constant activity and joy. Jacob's heart swelled with pride each time he saw Tommy and Evelyn together in the garden, their bond deepening with each passing day. Tommy had brought a sense of fulfillment that Jacob had longed for, and the house that once felt empty now echoed with laughter and warmth. One sunny afternoon, Jacob decided to celebrate Tommy's official inclusion in the family with a small gathering. He invited a few close friends and colleagues to their home. Linda, who had become an integral part of their lives, took charge of the preparations, ensuring everything was perfect for the special day. The garden, now in full bloom, thanks to the combined efforts of Evelyn and Tommy, served as the perfect backdrop for the celebration. As guests arrived, they marveled at the beautiful flowers and the sense of tranquility that filled the space. Jacob stood at the center of the garden, addressing the gathered friends and family. Thank you all for coming to share this special day with us, Jacob began. Today, we celebrate not just an adoption, but the formation of a new family. Tommy has brought so much joy into our lives, and we are grateful to have him as part of our family. Tommy, standing beside Jacob, beamed with happiness. He had never experienced such love and support, and the warmth of the celebration touched him deeply. Evelyn, seated comfortably in her wheelchair, looked on with pride. Despite her arthritis, she had found a renewed zest for life through her interactions with Tommy. She reached out, took his hand, and squeezed it gently. Tommy, you have given me so much joy. I am so proud to call you my grandson, Evelyn said, her voice full of emotion. As the celebration continued, Jacob found a quiet moment to speak with Tommy. Tommy, I want you to know how much you mean to us. You've changed our lives in ways we never could have imagined. You've given us a family. Tommy hugged Jacob tightly. Thank you, Jacob. You've given me a home and a family. I'm so happy here. Linda, watching the heartfelt exchange, felt tears of joy welling up in her eyes. She had witnessed the transformation in Jacob and Evelyn firsthand and was grateful to be part of their journey. She approached them with a smile. You two are an inspiration. This is what family is all about, Linda said warmly. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the garden, Jacob gathered everyone for a final toast. To new beginnings and the power of love and compassion. May we continue to grow and support each other as a family. The clinking of glasses and the heartfelt cheers marked the beginning of a new chapter for the Morgan family. Jacob, Evelyn, Tommy, and even Linda had found a sense of belonging and purpose that transcended their individual struggles. That night, as Jacob tucked Tommy into bed, he felt a profound sense of peace. The journey to this moment had been filled with challenges, but the reward was greater than he could have ever imagined. He kissed Tommy on the forehead and whispered, "Good night, son." "Welcome home." Tommy smiled, his eyes heavy with sleep. "Good night, Dad." In the quiet of the night, the Morgan household settled into a new rhythm. The transformative power of compassion had not only formed a new family, but had also brought healing and hope to each of its members. And with that, they embraced the future, ready to face whatever came their way,